Hey friends, we are in a series this fall as a church where we are exploring our spiritual story, our journey. And I unpacked a framework for exploring our story last week that I want to summarize here for those who may have missed it. We did sort of an allegorical reading of the famous parable of the Prodigal Son in Luke 15. And let me give you the main points we made there. The idea is that you and I, we set out in life and often adopt different false selves or masks that we wear. And the spiritual life is one of coming to a knowledge of who we truly are in God, who God's made us to be, learning to shed masks, put away those silly fig leaves that we use to cover ourselves to feel less insecure. And it's a journey. Luke 15 tells three parables of lost things. There's a lost coin that the woman comes searching for and finds and brings back. There's a lost sheep that the shepherd goes out and finds and brings back. In the third story, though, there's two lost sons. And in this story, the prodigal doesn't just sit around and wait for God to find him. He needs to get up and make the journey home to his true self and to life in God, in the loving presence of the Father. And that's our story. We can't just lay down and passively wait for God to wave a wand of spiritual maturity over us. We need to go on the journey of self-discovery, of discovering who God has made us to be, and sorting through the baggage of our childhood and all the voices that are calling out to us and trying to shape us and drive us. Those are outward voices of culture, of parents, of relationships that have hurt us, but they're also the inner voices inside, sometimes tuned to the voice of God, sometimes leading us into dark places of the soul. So with that in mind, a brief summary as you read this story, and I invite you to go read it on your own, the story of the prodigal son. I see three false selves. These might be phases that you go to. You might read this and go, oh, I remember that. I went through that phase back in my 20s when I went off to college. And now I'm living in this false self, in this phase of life. Others, they're not phases. They're just recurring voices or tugs and pulls. So let me just get to it. In the story, the first son sets out, says, Dad, give me my inheritance early. I'm leaving. And he goes off to a far-off land and spends his inheritance in wild living. I call this self, the inherited self. And that word of inheritance, this is simply the idea that we leave home with the baggage, with inherited beliefs, values, and expectations that others place on us. We have childhood wounds that we bring out the door with us into our lives, into our marriages, into our adult life. We can't escape this. We have inherited things from our childhood, from our family of origin. Now, this is a necessary journey of separating, of testing our childhood beliefs, of seeing if the values that have been instilled in us work in the real world, to not go out and explore and learn to own our own faith, to make some mistakes, is to not grow. It's to remain at home in our childlike existence and mentality. So this first phase, or this first self, is characterized by give me my inheritance, set out, and in the story he literally spends literal money on prostitutes and unsavory pursuits. But I want us to think about that spiritually. What does it mean to take what you've dragged out the door with you, whether it's a worldview, beliefs, certain, maybe we've been taught that if we work hard, we can, we'll always be successful. Well, that doesn't always prove to be true. Maybe you've been taught that, if you're a Christian and you love God, then nothing bad will ever happen in your life. Well, is that true? So some of us know this phase very well. So think about, what dead-end paths did you go down? What lessons did you have to learn the hard way? When did you have a rebellious streak? Are you still a person who's searching here and there for life, for satisfaction, for happiness, always hoping it's behind the next door? This is what we call the wandering soul. Now be compassionate towards this soul. We have a tendency to read this parable and say, what a naughty, naughty boy. And while we hope we don't end up needing to go through those doors, we do need, at least he left home. At least he is on the journey. Now the second phase is, after he spends everything, he's out of cash, and then a famine arises. Some crisis moment forces him to move into this second self that I call the just surviving self. Okay? Think of the young family. Think this is probably many of you. You are now, you've marriage and life has forced you to grow up. You have kids who need to be fed. You have activities that need to be brought to. You have food that needs to be put on the table. So get a job, grow up. Usually this something wakes us up or jolts us into being a more responsible person. Maybe it's getting married or having kids. But now you settle into this new phase of just getting by. I call it the just surviving self. Now what happens in this stage is we fall asleep to those deeper yearnings of the soul. We're so focused on externally providing for our family and getting from here to there and just getting through the day. We get food on the table, but we starve our soul. And this is... in this part of the story, he hires himself out to a pig farmer. And now a Jew who has no business hanging around pigs, working with pigs, is now feeding pigs to make a living and to survive. This speaks to those moments when you realize, I was made for one thing, and my current life or job or pursuits is a complete denial of something that's core to my being. Maybe you were a people person. God put you on this earth to encourage others, and you're working a clerical job in a back room crunching numbers with no interaction with human beings. You are denying a core aspect of your identity. Have you ever experienced a season where you're feeding pigs? In this season, we realize we're asleep to our soul's deeper yearnings, our true identity, and we're starving it. Can you relate? Now in the story, this is where we come to the point where it says, when he came to himself, he said, I'm starving. Powerful language there. The text, your translation probably says something like, when he came to his senses, he said, what am I doing here? Why don't I go back to the Father's house? But the phrase is, when he came to himself. And that's the linchpin of this whole exercise, is to realize that when he came to a realization that whatever I'm doing right now, this is not who I am. And now he's coming to an awareness of his true self, his true identity in God. And he's going to turn and go set off on a journey home to his true self in God, living as God made him. So there's two false selves: the inherited self of going out, testing all the inherited ideas and beliefs and expectations that others have placed on you. The just surviving self that's responsible and working hard to get by and put food on the table while falling asleep and starving our true self. There's another false self, and this is the elder brother that we meet at the end of this story. And put simply, this is a person who I think this self speaks to what I call the dutiful or fearful self. This is a person who is afraid to leave the familiar, test their inherited beliefs. They feel safe and secure in the teachings of their upbringing. They are afraid of change. They are afraid of exploring other faiths. They're afraid of deconstructing their faith. They don't know if their faith can hold up, so they're not even going to question it. And they're going to avoid people and put up a wall to those who would challenge the way they were raised and the beliefs they've inherited. Now, this person is often, they often present as kind of arrogant or stubborn, or I have the right ideas and I'm right, you're wrong, black and white thinking. But behind it isn't really an arrogant person. It's a fearful person. The personality here might just be a big part of it. The first son who goes off says, Dad, drop dead, give me my inheritance, I want to go explore the world. That's a certain personality, isn't it? We know those people who couldn't wait to leave and go off to college, and they loved breaking free of home. But we also know, and many of us are the person who it was terrifying leaving home, terrifying questioning our beliefs, terrifying interacting with people who think differently than we do. It's safer and more secure to stay home. And so this person is characterized by a reluctance to question, to leave, to challenge their beliefs. They put up walls and they push away people who challenge them. I call this the stunted soul. This isn't a bad soul. This is really a soul that's trying really hard to do the right thing. I go to church every Sunday. I read my Bible. I do the right thing. And yet this person is more focused on external conformity to expectations than seeking to understand their deeper yearnings of the soul. So have compassion towards all these selves. And this is a self that is afraid. And but here's the fact of the matter. The fact of the matter is this person thinks they've arrived, but they haven't even begun the journey. And they look down their nose at those who do break free and start questioning and deconstructing. Because, when it comes down to it, they know they're afraid to even do that. And they're afraid they would come apart at the seams if they ever did have their faith challenged, their beliefs, their worldview challenged. So, which of these three do you relate to? Have you experienced all three of these dynamics? You might think of these as different voices whispering in your soul. As I wrap up here, I want you to just think about we all need to go on this journey. We all need to sort through the inherited beliefs and values and expectations others place on us. We all need to learn how to, in the midst of life's demands of daily living, we can't lose sight of our inner journey, of personal growth and development. And we need to admit where we're afraid to even go on the journey. Well, the fourth soul is your true self. And we all want to have that moment where we come to our self and we say, my soul is starving. What am I doing? And we begin to journey home to our life in God, where we're living out our true identity. And in this story, the father looks down the road while the son is still far away. He sees him. He has a heart of compassion towards those who are wandering, those wandering souls. He has a heart of compassion towards those souls that are starving and have fallen asleep in the midst of daily demands. And he has a firm word for those souls who think they have it all together but are afraid to even come to the party and go on the journey. So I want you to just interact with this exercise. Think about your life. Think about your soul's deeper yearnings. In each one of these phases, think about, what is that person's picture of God? The elder brother, the dutiful-fearful self, often has a picture of God as a God who's keeping score and who's got all these rules we need to follow. And he's a God that we need to please and serve. But he's hardly a loving father who wants to walk alongside us as we grow and explore and challenge. Well, I'm going to leave it there. You get a sense of this story. Go read it for yourself and think about the spiritual dimensions as you think about your soul on a journey out into the world, but hopefully coming back into the loving presence of God who knows who you are in your heart of hearts. Amen. God bless you. We'll see you soon.